My mother was born on January 16th, 1946. She died on October 11th, 2012. Her name was Mary Ellen Waters, and she was an artist. These are her stories, and this is her art. My mother was a listener. Well, for the most part. She was also a delightfully incessant chatterbox with an endless array of stories that intersected on unexpected objects and people. She was hard to follow in the last years of her life when in the middle of a story, she would suddenly introduce characters from her childhood or cherished mementos that had been long lost and which I had categorized under had to be their moments in her life. However, when she wasn't telling unfollowable stories, she was definitely a listener. She would listen not to what people were saying, but the tone of their voice, or how the shape of their mouth and the width of their teeth would have a part in how their words were being said to her. She would listen to dimples contracting, cheek muscles turning upward. She would listen to the shadows cast from an elongated earlobe or nose. She would hear someone's words and occasionally respond appropriately, but she was always listening for something else. Everything else was much more alive than just the spoken words. Colors, shadows, tones, and textures created an orchestral effect around her, and the words she was hearing were percussive syllables, merely a part of a greater symphony. It didn't matter that Mary Waters would shut herself away for weeks at a time because she had a year's worth of inspiration and entertainment in every scene around her. And when she did make it out of her house, she would squirrel away anything that was not nailed down. In the name of art, of course. When at doctor's appointments, the staff would side-eye her as she stole hundreds of coffee straws. It was far more important to her to be able to, one day, recreate a perfect skin texture in clay than to abide by social norms. She didn't care. She would laugh if she got scolded or pretend she didn't realize she took so many. She was only listening to the beat of her art and wasn't accountable for her actions. When I was going through her belongings, I discovered a silk and cardboard makeshift suitcase with a heavy-duty brass zipper. Heavy-duty zippers were always important to Mary. She believed that they kept her items safe and sound and unlikely to be mourned many years after being lost somehow through a less secure closure. Because of this belief, I knew when I found something with a zipper, its importance was underlined and that item should be treasured for eternity. I half expected to find 1,000 coffee straws in the makeshift suitcase, but it had a density to it, a strange, fragile gravity. When I unzipped the suitcase, I found ears. Yes, ears. Ceramic ears. At least a few dozen in a wide spectrum of cool colors and glazes, each in its own little hand-sewn silk pocket outlined in iridescent sequins. I imagined her young, not yet arthritic hands somehow creating an ear mold and mass-producing these ears. I pictured her patiently firing them in the kiln, her favorite tool, the one she blames for losing her eyebrows in a fiery blast back in the 70s, but we all secretly believed she simply over-tweezed them in that era. She carefully mixed and experimented with her glazes over and over again to get the right colors and layers and textures. She wasn't just practicing that day, she was listening to the sounds of the kiln and the cooling of the clay and the crackling of the glazes to make the perfect ears. We will never know how many ears she made that day, but these were the ones that were saved. These ears were worth keeping, zippered away, and safe.